Yeah. So here we go. For the moment you've all been waiting for, ladies and gentlemen. I was surprised TJ even agreed with me on the fact that it wasn't Kyle Busch's fault. And yeah, so Kyle tried to block him. And then you can see it, man, especially the overhead angle. Corey just, yeah, dumped Kyle Busch. Hello and welcome back to another episode of your favorite couch potatoes, a special Redneck Boys edition. I'm back with your boy Big Country. I am your host Jay Cubs, and we're ready to get into it. We got 2 weeks to recap, so let's just dive right in, shall we, buddy?
Yeah, we got a lot of stuff we got to go over.
All right. Well, let's get started. Okay, let's get started with some news. So let's start out with kind of the biggest news I feel like that's come out in the past couple of races. I don't know. There's a lot, but let's just start out with Bubba Wallace's fine. I'm sure all NASCAR fans have heard about this by now, but he got fined a big old $50K for bumping Alex Bowman, running into him on the cool down lap there at the Chicago street race. And then just a little bit more into that, he apologized for his actions at the race a couple weeks ago. He said it was the best thing that's ever happened to him, that he's been miserable for years with the persona that he's not been proud of walking around. He says he hasn't been proud of this persona for years. So, yeah, that's kind of it. I'll let you get into your thoughts on that. And then, yeah, what do you think?
Well, I mean, what does he mean by his persona? I would say, like, is it like he's trying to play the good guy card, and now all of a sudden he didn't like that persona of himself, like he wasn't natural. He has to be the villain. Is that what he's kind of saying? That's what it sounds like to me. So
Yeah, I think, I'm not sure. That definitely could be. I think it was something like, I don't even really know what to make of it. Yeah, like just he hasn't been true to himself, I guess. Or I know that there's been a lot of times where he's, acted out. I know that me, you, TJ too have always talked about, just kind of the antics that Bubba pulls on the track. I think that might be a lot of things that he's referring to. And definitely what he did at Chicago was not okay. And I think that was the second time he's done something like that, at least in the Cup Series. So, yeah, I mean, hopefully, I feel like Bubba's a driver that you can tell wears his heart on his sleeve and that it's just who he is and not a persona per se.
yeah,
So it's going to be interesting to see how he decides to, mess with that going forward.
yeah. We'll see how his persona changes, I guess. um,
Right?
Anyways, we got a little bit more news here. Something that I know NASCAR fans are gonna hate. I
Yep.
I know I personally hate it. I mean, you go to NASCAR races to hear them engines and smell the gasoline, and it's such an amazing experience to go see a NASCAR race live. But NASCAR is going to unveil, or NASCAR does unveil the ABB NASCAR EV prototype. It is their first electric race car, and they want to gauge the fan interest. And like I said, I don't feel like you know what I mean. Like I mean, as a NASCAR fans, everybody just loves the roar, and you can feel the rumble in the stands from all the cars, and it's an experience that is a huge part of NASCAR. And if you take away that engine and put in an electric car, and you just hear everybody go bee around the track, like it takes it takes away from NASCAR, man. I hate it, but
Oh
hey, what do
man,
you
that
say?
that was awesome. Just that sound effect was perfect. I can't imagine. Yeah. I mean, I remember talking to you when this news first came out and the thing I said is I remember NASCAR doing this like 10, 12 years ago, I don't know, something where they did it, but they did it as an April Fool's joke where they just released like, "Oh, we're going to electric cars," and obviously all the uproar came and I'm like, it's not like anything's changed for motorsports or NASCAR in particular. Like, yeah, what do you mean gauge fan interest? You already know everybody's going to hate it. Like, nobody's going to like it. If you had the funding and like wanted to do some sort of different type of like sport, like still NASCAR related and do it with electric and see how that goes, okay. But yeah, don't change. We've already discussed how much we hate like this next gen car and everything. They've already changed too much. Yeah, take the freaking switch it to electric. No, thank you. No, thank you at all. That's pretty simple, especially after hearing your sound effect. Yeah, I'm definitely not a fan. But let's just move on into some more changes. And I know we talked about this in depth about the All Star race when they had those different types of tires and those red painted short grip faster wear tires that was supposed to be, the only thing that made the all-star race interesting, and it didn't do fucking shit. um, they're going to actually implement the tire package at Richmond in a points paying cup race at Richmond coming up in this fall. And yeah, it's just the same thing. So they're going to have the normal slower wear but less grip tire, and then they're going to have the softer option tire that's going to be more grip but faster wear. So yeah, I'll just say basically same thing that we said before. Don't I don't see that this is going to make much of a difference. We saw it at the All-Star race where you know, what was it? There was like one car in the top 10 that didn't take the faster wear tires, and it didn't seem to matter at all. Now, the only thing that's different is we're going to have an actual like race setup where we're not going to have those short all-star race. So maybe it'll make more of a difference with the longer race, but I don't know. I didn't like it when I saw it first. Maybe it'll be better this time, but I'm not too thrilled about like seeing this come up again.
No, and I think it's a cool idea. I think it's another strategy wise thing that they could add into NASCAR. And I think that it should be, if they do implement it, I think it should go for a full season and maybe see how that goes. That's pretty drastic, but I mean, that's the only way that you're going to be able to see it like in full action. You're not just seeing it at this all-star race where there's only one driver. And we've seen that multiple times now where it's just one driver in the lead the whole time. It's not like the tires ever make sense anyway.
Yep. Where track
So
position is key. Yeah.
yeah. So you saw like I think that they need to test it out on a few of the bigger tracks, and see how that works. I get the shorter tracks because you have to be mindful a lot more of your wear and tear of the tire.
Yeah.
But I don't know. I think it could be a cool option for NASCAR. It could be a new strategic thing that they have to go through in the pits, which would add more to NASCAR, which I feel like could be a good thing. But they definitely need to experiment a little more.
Yeah. Yeah. That's a good point, I guess. And maybe this will be, a better start with the real cup race, but, you know, we'll have to see. I mean, I don't know. There's definitely a lot of strategy that already happens. And then I don't know how the drivers would feel about this because I feel like, they've already been upfront and honest about how they, feel about all the changes that have been happening. And, like we've talked in depth about aero blocking, stuff like that. And so now you throw in these tires and, let's say they do work. Let's say they make a big difference. Then, it could screw everything up. You never know. Because I think, you're going to get a limited amount of the shorter wear tires or something. So, are you going to save them all for the last run if you get, a caution with 50 to go? Or, are you going to use them for stages? Or is it even going to matter? Like, what if you save them all and then it's just a long green flag run and you don't get, someone else uses them early on, gets that track position, So I think it could definitely make things more interesting. Like you say, I just wonder how much are we like trying to change and not, just focusing on our sport and, how beautiful it already is. And yeah, just trying to do too much. You know what I mean? I think that's what I'm trying to get to in a roundabout way is that it's just like we're doing so much at this point with NASCAR.
Yeah, I mean, NASCAR is always trying to keep everybody's attention though, so they always got to add something a little new to keep the attention there and not just have the fighting in the pits that makes everybody attracted to NASCAR. You know what I mean?
Yeah, that's a good point. Definitely. Well, let's move it on. A kind of a surprising thing that came out was AM Racing and Haley Deegan have ended their partnership effective immediately. So this happened, I believe, like a week and a half ago. Um, and yeah, it was just out of nowhere. Nobody really said anything about it. They never said, for any reason. It basically just said that uh, they just mutually agreed to end their partnership. Now, I know that she hasn't been a top performing um, driver. I know we kind of talked about it, I think, before we started this podcast, but that she maybe didn't deserve that Xfinity ride, at least quite yet. So it's not surprising to see her lose the ride, but in the middle of a season, I haven't seen something like that. And I know she's such a popular driver, especially in the Xfinity and Truck Series, that it's definitely a surprising move.
Yeah, I mean, losing or ending a partnership in the middle of the season is always extremely unheard of. Um, and that's. I think it's. I mean, it's an extreme thing, and obviously, like you said, she's a popular driver. Um, it's just, and like you said, she's not the best driver in Xfinity. You know, um, yeah, I don't know. It's surprising to see anybody lose their ride right in the middle of in a season. That's just
Yeah.
odd.
Yeah.
So yeah, just weird all around. But we'll move on here to we got silly season. We got some off season look. I keep losing my train of thought right now. I don't know what's going on.
Just some
Um,
silly season. Yeah, more news like we were talking about,
yeah,
right? That we're gonna keep going on. So what you got for us this time?
yeah. I mean, so if I don't lose my train of thought again, maybe I'll get through a sentence. So, Noah Gragson signs a multi-year deal with Front Row Motorsports, and that also means that you lose your potential partner that you really wanted there at RCR. So,
Yep, yeah. I mean, I kind of figured it was a long shot, but hey, I like this move for Noah Gragson. I mean, Front Row Motorsports has definitely shown that they can compete. Obviously, Michael McDowell's been kind of the lead horse of that camp so far, and now he's leaving for Spire. But I think Noah Gragson can step into that ride. You continue with the Ford, that's good for him. And definitely pick up where Michael McDowell left off, if not possibly even do a little bit better. I mean, we all saw Noah Gragson in the Xfinity series. I mean, him and Ty Gibbs were class of the field for years, just battling back and forth and winning all kinds of races, championships, you name it. So, I mean, if you think about it, maybe Noah Gragson has the talent, and maybe they can focus more around him at front row compared to where they had a lot more drivers that they really needed to focus on at Stuart Haas and or Stuart Haas not being as good. So I like the move for Noah Gragson individually. Like you said, I was a hopeful. Maybe he could be a guy with that Bass Pro sponsorship. Come on over to RCR and continue that. But yeah, sad that he won't be a teammate of Kyle's, but I think it's a good choice for him.
yeah, no, I think so too. I mean, I think Noah Gragson's a real good driver. He's definitely he's proven to be middle of the pack there in Cup Series. He's a steady driver. He's consistent. I don't know his stats right off the top of my head for this last little part of the season because I know he's fallen out of the power rankings.
Yeah.
Um, and that's also with all these winners that we got now too. So, but yeah, no, I definitely think it's a good move Sucks for Kyle Busch, which
What
I'm happy
doesn't
about.
this? What
Kyle
doesn't
Busch
these
deserves
days?
better help.
Yeah, now he does. Now he needs a lot of help, but we'll have to get into that a lot later. But yeah, good for him. Good for front row. I think that's going to be a good fit, and they got some young talent there. They got Todd Gilliland still there too as well. So I think the two of them can work well together and grow and develop. So that'll be pretty nice to see. Moving on with some more silly season news. This was kind of surprising. It came out of left field for me. Good old Rodney Childress back in NASCAR. He signs a multi-year deal with Spire Motorsports to be the crew chief of the 7 car. Now, he was the longtime crew chief, very successful crew chief for Kevin Harvick. I believe won the championship with him and everything. So definitely a good, well experienced crew chief that I'll just say Corey LaJoy definitely fucking needs, but that's another little spoiler for later on. Maybe it's a waste for Rodney Childress or what, but yeah,
Uh,
it's definitely it's good for the Spire Motorsports in the 17. That's definitely going to make them better.
yeah, you love that 7 car right now. I mean, he did the world a favor. And
Oh
took out a
man.
few other cars in the process, but we'll get into it a little later. But no, I think I mean, it's a great move for the 7 car. Great move for Lohoy or LaJoy or whatever, however you want to pronounce his last name.
Who cares?
Um, yeah, yeah, I know you don't care. But no, I think it's a good move for Spire Motorsports. That could definitely amp up their chances, because he is a long time, really good crew chief. He's proven it with Kevin Harvick. I mean, obviously Kevin Harvick was a really good driver, also. So you need a mix of both. I don't know how LaJoy's gonna do it, but if you want to add a comment
Well, before we get into that and I let it all out and spoil the episode, let's just go ahead and that's the news for this cycle. So we'll definitely see what happens by the next time we record, but let's get into it. I know it was not the cup race, but I didn't want to talk about this because it was actually more entertaining than the cup race, 1000%. Now, one part of that did definitely have to do with the weather. So we'll just say the weather was perfect, sunny, no clouds in the sky in the Xfinity race. And then, yeah, we'll have to get into just how bad the weather was, as it always is for these cup races. But it was awesome. We had a lot of cup guys doing double duty. I know that Larson was in there, Gibbs was in there, Logano was even in there, TJ, because he always likes to talk about how Kyle has to go down to the Xfinity series and win against
race the 18-year-olds.
18-year-olds. Yeah,
Yeah.
like he's the only guy that does it. But then, anyways. No, it was awesome. So Larson and SVG, they were the class of the field in this race. Surprise, surprise. And they were going back and forth with great battles. I mean, it looked like SVG got the lead, was going to run away with it, and then all of a sudden Larson would get a corner. SVG mess up on one turn, and then Larson overtook it. So they were back and forth for like the first 5 laps. We get a caution. They basically do it again. SVG wins the first battle. Larson wins the second, but then SVG gets him back, gets the stage 1 win. And then with it being kind of a shorter race in Xfinity, strategy comes into play. So a lot of those guys get shuffled back in the field, the leaders, and then we get some different kind of play. We had some RCR Xfinity boys up there up front. They end up Austin Hill was the one that ended up winning stage 2, the other guy that I've been really wanting to come up to Cup. And yeah, so it was really fun. And then we get on into stage 3. Kyle Larson and SVG at this point are making their way back through the field. And you're getting a lot of cautions. A lot of things are getting switched up. Basically, what ends up happening is SVG ends up making it through the field. Larson just gets caught up a little bit. And yeah, SVG just, of course, dominates the race, wins his 3rd straight road course race in the Xfinity Series, and is actually leading the playoffs in points for the for the upcoming playoffs. He's at the top of the standings just because it's not like it's an unfair advantage. I don't know if I would say, but obviously just has a different skill set that regular Xfinity guys and even Cup guys don't have. So looking good for that 97 team in the Xfinity and your boy SVG.
Yeah, I mean it's his it's his cream of the crop right there. I mean that type of style of racing through the streets of Chicago and the road courses in general. I mean that's just his style of racing, and he's obviously going to be dominant in that because he was good with the supercars. He raced the supercars. So there's no surprise here that it's between Kyle Larson and SVG. Of course, they're the top of the field. They're racing against the 18-year-olds, you know. So,
Yep.
but yeah, no, SVG. I don't know if he's quite ready to come up the Cup yet. He can still go race the road courses. Yeah, I don't think he's quite ready to come up and race the ovals with the big boys yet.
Yeah, I'd have to agree with you. But yeah, like I said, great, great Xfinity race. It was super entertaining. I got the chance to watch it, don't often get to, so I wanted to kind of throw that in there. And then I'm glad I did because it was, like I said, a lot of things going on. And yeah, Wes, let's go ahead and get into this stupid Cup race. I know that you were super excited to come over and watch the race together, and didn't really pan out that way, did it?
No, I mean it's been a minute since we've had a good NASCAR Sunday, and so I was like, man, now I get to come over. You know, I've been having some long weekends recently. Just wanted to kick back and watch a little bit of NASCAR, which the Chicago street race just always has to let me down. I feel like it could be such a good race. It could be such a good race, but
Yeah.
every time, both times now, it's just weather.
Yep.
Um, so we start off the race with a delay due to the weather. Drivers test the course for one pace lap to decide if they want wet weather or slick tires. They had the option to choose between both of them throughout the race. Obviously, with how the storm clouds were coming in, and and they were coming in pretty quick. And yeah, well, we'll get into it with stage two. That was probably the worst point.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, it was a surprise that we were able to get going racing, and that was something that I had personally never seen before. Where they were one. I remember sitting there saying like, how do they even have the option? Like, I feel like if we're gonna have to race, like I thought it was a not a choice, like it was a definite thing. Like we're either gonna have slick tires or we're gonna have wet weather tires. But yeah, everybody gets to do the pace lap, kind of test out the corners and everything, test out the braking zones, and then they were talking about it a lot because yet they're racing on the actual street. It's not a track designed for this kind of thing, so it's not going to melt off any water or anything. You're gonna have puddles just like you see in the streets. There's cracks, there's everything, and yeah, so that was something that was pretty wild. But you're right, we did get to decide, and I think there was I think most people went with slicks to start, and then there was a few back in the back that had wet weather that ended up kind of making their way through because they kind of stuck with it. And it was all kind of strategy. It all got, excuse me, it all got kind of wonky, definitely with that. And that's another thing is that, I'm glad that we have these wet weather tires in some instances where we can get the race going, but at the same time, like we talked about at New Hampshire, I mean, that's just not racing. That was just, running like you're talking about on the caution laps where they're running the inside wall so close. And then when they're going, 7 wide, but it's just because they have to take the turns so carefully and everything like that. But it's definitely weird. But let's get back into the race. So surprise, surprise, Mr. SVG's back in it. I believe he started fifth in this race. Larson started on the pole, but SVG is able to make his way through the field pretty quickly, and he ends up winning stage one after Corey LaHoy, the host of the Stacking Pennies, or I'd like to say the Stacking Rex, That's what he does, at least on the track. I don't know what he does on his podcast, but Corey LaJoie ends up wrecking. Wow, who would have thunk it? Who would have thought that? All on his own too, by the way. And so that was with about 4 to go, and then the weather was coming in. So they end up just kind of like testing it out, and they'd run those 4 laps under caution. SVG ends up winning stage 1.
Yeah, I mean, stage one was. I mean, Um, it was pretty boring. I'd have to
Mm-hmm.
say. I mean, there was. I mean, it. Like you were saying, it's just not racing when the guys are just trying to not wreck the car. You know what I
Yep.
mean? When they're so scared of the track that it's just that they're gonna, destroy this extremely expensive car just because the track is slick. And obviously, like you were saying, the track's not built for racing. It's built for your normal car to go rolling down the road. It had potholes and stuff like that, puddles where the puddles formed, and yeah, I don't know. I mean, the part that I did get to catch because I didn't get all the way through the race. I had to leave. So
Well,
after,
I don't blame you. We had like a 3-hour delay, right?
yeah,
Like,
yeah. Um, but did have to leave going what after that first caution in stage two, which we'll get into right now.
yeah.
Um, the racing to start off stage two got ridiculous. You couldn't even see any of the cars. As soon as
Mm-mm.
they restarted, all that water got kicked up in the air, and it's almost like you're flying down a dirt road and you got your buddy behind you. You look up in the
Yep.
mirror and you can't even see him. You know what I
Yep.
mean? I was just extremely surprised that they were even racing with that. You know?
Right? Because like, how is that? I mean, you could just look at that through the TV and be like, that's not safe. You're not supposed to be able to do that when you're racing, a professional race. It's not like you're just on the road. You can slow down, increase the wipers or whatever, increase your following distance to be safe. Nobody's going to, I mean, they're going to try, but at the same time, they still got to race. So,
Yeah. Yeah, and I mean, it was stupid. I can't believe that they let him go with how the track was. Even to come out of stage two, they should have just threw the red flag right there and waited for that rain to subside. Um, but going further into stage two, we see Chase Briscoe slide right through a turn and ever so slightly clipped your number one pick, who wasn't able to save the car because obviously, like we've been saying, it's a street, not an actual course, and he just could not save that car. Slid right into the wall. I
yep.
think he ended up breaking the rear axle, I believe is what it
Hmm.
was. He
Yeah.
slammed the car so hard it broke that rear axle, and it was cool too because we didn't even notice. We were sitting there watching it, and all of a sudden it showed SVG getting out of his car and everything. And
Yeah.
you're
We had
like,
no
oh, what the
idea.
hell happened? What the hell
Yeah.
happened? Because I even said it right as it happened. I was like, oh, he got so close to SVG,
Hmm.
got so close to taking him out. And then they showed the replay, and he just ever so slightly just tapped his back bumper
And
and
the
pushed
car,
him right
and
into the wall.
if the track is dry at that point, I
Oh, he
think that
saves
he
it.
can save it, right?
Oh,
And
yeah,
that
he
was the thing
saves it.
too. If the track is dry, Chase Briscoe also doesn't do that because he just, he was going in the
Yeah,
wall no matter what. He had lost it. It was
yeah,
over. And yeah, it was a surprise because he barely nicked him, and definitely you could tell SVG surprised. I feel like he almost didn't even realize he was nicked until he hit the wall, and then he had the same look as all of us. The hell just happened?
yeah.
And yeah, it just got ridiculous. And then yeah, so I remember saying it on the last podcast. I'm like, wow, you guys let me get SVG and Kyle Larson. They're tied for the best odds. I'm looking I'm looking good. If even if they somehow don't win the race, like I'm gonna be okay. Well, Kyle Larson does basically what Chase Briscoe does, and he just falls straight, loses grip, and goes straight into the tie barrier. Boom, ends his day. So instead of my drivers getting 1 and 2, they got 39th and 40th, 1 and 2 to
Hmm.
last. So
I've
yeah,
got
we'll
the
get into
script, bud.
that.
I've got the
we'll get
script.
But yeah, after that, we're in another rain delay. And then when we come back, it it doesn't even get any better. I mean, so we happened to be recording our other podcast at the same time. I'm like, well, this race is over, we're done. So, and we had a podcast to record, so we got in it, and then all of a sudden I see the race going on, and I'm like, what the hell? So all I could see, I couldn't hear anything, but I could see it. The drivers were given a 9:20 p.m. deadline to finish the race. So no matter how many laps happened, well, they weren't going to finish the allotted laps. So as many as they could get in, basically. Didn't matter about cautions, green flag, 9:20. The race is over once. So, once that timer hits and then the leader takes the white flag after that, they get one more lap. And at this point, like everybody had been again wet weather, grip tires, everything's changed. Like I said, the two top guys were out of it. And then we had I can't remember his name now because he's one of the road course guys. He drove for RFK in that 60 car. He ends up coming out with the lead after one of the cautions, and Bowman's right behind him, and they're kind of going back and forth. They're battling. Bowman ends up taking the lead from him. And then it becomes a race of, because Tyler Reddick definitely was the stronger car, and but he has to make his way through the field. And we get to that white flag. Tyler's within distance, and as long as he doesn't mess up, he gets the win, which I think you picked him, so it would have been perfect. But um, he doesn't. He misses one turn. That was it. He missed one turn. He missed it kind of bad, and his day was over. So Bowman the Showman wins his first race in 80 races. I believe since your first in-person NASCAR race, that was his last Cup Series win
I think it
in
was. Yeah.
Vegas. So yeah, he breaks it, breaks that streak, and gets into the playoffs. So I don't want to go too far into yeah, he didn't win it. I mean, we've talked about that so much this season that hell, half the drivers haven't won their race. So you know, I give him credit and being in the right position at the right time and getting that win and getting that monkey off his back.
Yeah, I mean, I'm glad for Alex Bowman. He's not a bad driver. He's not an asshole on the track. He's a good guy. Finally break that 80 race winless streak. Um, like you said, I do believe that that's true. The last race he won was in Vegas. What? How long was that? Like almost 4 years now?
So
5 years?
Zoma, it was 2022, but it was like the spring, so it's about 2.5 years.
No way.
Yeah, that's all it's been, man. I promise you.
Wow. Wow. No wonder. No wonder I feel so fucking old all the time.
Can't even keep track of time anymore, huh?
Yeah, no, I'm glad for him. That's an awesome streak to break. Yeah, I bet it felt amazing. I can't remember exactly what he said in the he's gonna pass out on the bathroom floor tonight
Oh
or something
yeah,
like that.
drinking. Yeah, he's gonna pass out
Yeah,
naked on the
yeah.
bathroom floor, drinking a lot of bourbon and whatnot. Yep. Well, hey, cheers to you, Bowman.
Well, should we get into the finishes for our pick'ems
I
for the
mean, we don't
Chicago
have to if
Street?
you don't want to. It's okay.
I don't know.
It's fine.
Uh, I know you don't want to.
Yeah. I think I
But,
posted the worst average finish of any of us this season, so I don't know if I should get any penalty for that. But man, like I said, two of the drivers back in the pack, and then I had Chase Elliott, who wanted to mention the top 20 streak got broken in this race, 21st.
oh, oh,
21st. So yeah, it doesn't get that top 20 streak, just barely. And obviously, like all the pandemonium, he definitely could have gotten that, especially at a road course, being how good he is. But yeah, 21st, I think, and then 39th and 40th. That's not going to win you a lot of pick 'em points, ladies and
yeah,
gentlemen.
that's not gonna do that. How many points do you have so far?
Total?
Yeah, I think you're at
I
like
have
29, right?
32.
32.
We're now tied at 32. You,
I think you should get docked 32 points for having the worst average
oh
finish of
yeah,
the.
32
Yeah.
points. I thought you were just gonna say one so you could have the lead, but okay, 32. Go, go right ahead with that.
Anyways, so I finished at an average finish of 20.33. I picked Christopher Bell, Tyler Reddick, and Ross Chastain. Kyle comes in at an average finish of 33.33. That's pretty horrendous. It almost looks like Kyle Busch's finish every week.
Oh man, I'm gonna have to
It's
stop
just like Kyle
watching
Busch's
and
finish.
doing this NASCAR podcast. This is embarrassing.
And obviously, like you just said, you had SVG, Kyle Larson, Chase Elliott. And then TJ finished with an average finish of 17.67, which wins him that week. He picked Chris Buescher, Martin Truex Jr., and Ryan Blaney. To finish off, we kind of went over a little bit of the total scores with yours. To the totals for everybody, we've got you at 32, me at 32, and TJ at 26.
He's catching up, buddy, and that's getting. We talked a lot of shit, so we better get our shit together because he's right. He's right on our heels now. And hell, I mean, based on we didn't get to make our pick'ems this last week, but just a little spoiler: if we did, he might have really been on our ass. But
Yeah,
we'll have
yeah.
to get into it. So yeah, speaking of, let's get into Pocono. So let's start with stage one. Ty Gibbs on the pole. I think that Joe Gibbs had 3 of the top 4 spots or 5 spots. Like they were just looking like they were going to dominate this race, and they kind of did. Yeah, Ty Gibbs, he got out to that early lead, led the first 15-ish laps of the race before Noah Gragson ended up spinning out on his own to bring out that first caution. And then after the second caution with pit stops, everything gets shaken up. Gibbs takes it a little too hard into turn 1 and ends up losing it a little bit. And Martin Truex Jr. able to slide on by and then doesn't look back, takes stage 1. So it's kind of all I saw on the stage. Wasn't too interesting. I noticed a lot of drivers were taking it really cautiously at the beginning of the race. Like you see in the Pocono with that long straightaway and that tight turn 1, you'll see a lot of 3, 4, sometimes 5 wide going in there. And it wasn't until that bright peach Bush Peach car, who's the first guy, of course, to take it 3 wide and go a little aggressive, but no harm, no foul. No harm, no foul on that one. But yeah, those are my stage 1 thoughts. Any for you?
No, I mean I don't have very much there. I mean, like you said, everybody was being very cautious, and really, I mean, Ty Gibbs is the only guy that kind of messed up in stage 1. So,
Yep, him and Noah Gragson. Because yeah, Noah, he lost it all on his own. Um, so
oh, that's
nothing
right, no
else.
Gregson too.
Yeah,
Yeah.
nothing else really happened there. But then we get into stage 2 strategy. Of course, shakes up the field. So we got. I think we had a lot of Fords that were up front at the beginning of stage 2, and those Joe Gibbs racing, they kind of got shuffled back. And yeah, you were talking. I don't know why you were talking so much because now I got the juice going and I'm ready to give it back to you. But nah, I mean Ross Chastain, he lost something. It looked like they said he lost steering possibly before he lost his right front. And he hit the wall just super hard coming out of
Oh
turn
yeah.
3, and in his day finishing second to last. So yeah, unfortunate to see that. I know that I think Chastain, again running in that in his sweet spot, but yeah, just lost something. I noticed that, and this started a trend. A lot of mechanical failures in this
There
race.
was, there was, but yeah, like you said, I mean, obviously coming down to the end of the season now, can't afford to have mistakes like that, especially with a winless season, or yeah, a winless season for Ross Chastain. Um, but yeah, just some sort of mechanical failure with his tire. Lost control of the steering is what I heard. I didn't see
Yeah,
anybody bump him or anything like that. He lost it on his front right, so I don't see. And he was on the outside, so I don't see how anybody could have tapped him. But he did hit that wall pretty hard. Ended his day. Can't be having that at the end of the season, especially being right on the cut line for the
Yep.
playoffs and points, you can't be having that type of stuff. So
Nope. Definitely not ideal. It's gonna make the rest of the way very, very. I don't. Entertaining's not the word. Just stressful for that one team
yeah.
for sure. And then Mister Everybody's favorite driver, Denny Hamlin, of course at Pocono, the all-time leading winner there, wins stage 2. So no surprises there, and it's looking like he's looking pretty strong for stage 3, which we'll get into. So the first thing that happens really there is Todd Gillen gets in the wall again, mechanical failure. They were saying maybe a rotor exploded down the front stretch because it wasn't even off a turn. He was just down the front stretch. He was able to kind of baby it into the turn and do a baby wall ride, if you will, but just to kind of save the car. But yeah, he was pretty much done after that. So then we get a caution with about 40 to go, and boy, oh boy, were the cops out because Kyle Larson, Ty Gibbs, Chase Elliott, and Daniel Suarez got caught for speeding in the same speeding zone. So for those of you that don't know, in pit road, they have zones, and it depends on the track how long they are, how many there are. Pocono, very long straightaway, so they got plenty of space. Can't remember the zone number, but I think it was right after the start finish line. It's a real tricky, like the timing is real tricky or something like that. Because what a lot of these drivers will do is they'll speed until they get to that zone. Boom, stop. We're going the right, speed, and then do that again, and then until they get out. But yeah, they all get caught for speeding. I saw something that it was like Chase Elliott, another streak broken for him. It'd been like 2-3 years since he had a speeding penalty, which I think is pretty crazy, especially the amount of times I've seen Kyle Busch fucking get a speeding penalty and ruin his freaking day. So good for him having that long of a streak. But yeah, kind of crazy to see that all happen, especially with those top guys, all who maybe not Suarez, but all of the other ones that could have won
Hey,
that
he's got to
race.
win. He's got to win. No need to talk shit on Daniel Suarez, man. I mean that dude doesn't hurt a fly. Come
that's,
on now.
that's true. You can't hurt
Unlike
many
unlike
flies in 25th. I
unlike the
would
next
know.
guy
I
we're
would
gonna talk
know.
about. Unlike the next guy we're gonna talk about, your
I would
favorite driver
know.
right
Well,
now.
that's true.
Yeah.
Yeah, I guess you're right. Oh, yeah. So here we go. For the moment you've all been waiting for, ladies and gentlemen. Yeah,
Yeah,
Corey
we've been waiting for
LaJoy
this one.
gets so we're like I said, we had about 40 to go. So now racing's starting to heat up, and we're instead of going 2 wide into turn 1, we're going 4 or 5 wide. So Corey LaJoy, he got a good run. He got to the inside of Kyle. Kyle blocked him. Not unheard of. And I was surprised TJ even agreed with me on the fact that it wasn't Kyle Busch's fault. And so Kyle tried to block him, and then you can see it, man, especially the overhead angle. Corey just, dumped Kyle Busch. And
Oh yeah.
I mean, I get that Kyle's blocking him, and I get you can be a little mad about it, but everybody blocks. Everybody's going to have their runs. They had their own lines going into turn 1, and Corey might have even had the preferred line. Kyle you know, might have got shuffled back. Now, I'm not sitting here like he was going to win the race. I mean, this was fucking depressing. He was running in the 30s. He got passed. He got passed by Cody Ware on speed, not on strategy, not on tires, not on, Kyle didn't mess, just pure speed. Cody Ware passed Kyle Busch. And, due to strategy and stuff, he was making his way up into the top 15, which definitely would have been good for him. Oh my gosh, I can't believe I didn't even mention this. He got a top 10 at Chicago, okay? It happened. All right. He got a top 10.
I was
It
really hoping.
happened.
I was really hoping it would just coast and we wouldn't have to didn't have to bring it up. But
Ninth place, ladies and gentlemen. Ninth place. But yeah. So, I mean, but back to it. Corey LaJoy just fucking wrecked him. And um, the thing is, it's not even a Kyle Busch thing. I go on to, Instagram, social media the next couple days. Everybody's roasting the shit out of Corey LaJoy. Like, shout out random Instagram user because I saw it from them. It wasn't my idea, the stacking Rex thing, but people are just roasting the hell out of him and like, why the hell does this dude even have a job? But which I'll get into a little bit more. I'm not done on my soapbox or hot button like Feist likes to say in our other podcast. But yeah, what'd you see on that wreck?
I mean, what I saw was, I mean, Kyle definitely blocked him the first time, and you
Yep.
would think that would end his run. But it didn't. Corey LaHoy still had a lot of speed on his run, and Kyle came up to block him again, which he missed that block, I believe, which
Mm-hmm.
led to Corey LaHoy getting on the inside of Kyle Busch. And then from what I saw, Kyle Busch went back into the field. He had already gone back into the field and given up, saying, I didn't get this block. I'm giving up and giving you the position."
Yep.
Um, and to me, it just looked like it was something extremely intentional. I mean, Kyle Busch blocked him, obviously ruined the run. He would have gotten a lot of spots out of it. Um, but yeah, from what I saw, Kyle Busch said, "I missed this block. I'll get out of his way now. You know, I'm going back into the field.
Gonna eat whatever
Let's,
I have, right?
yeah,
Like this,
yeah.
let's go.
I
And
mean,
yep.
that's from what I saw. And then Corey LaHoy just, I mean, he straight up dumped him. I mean, it was intentional to me. Like even my girlfriend, I was sitting there watching the recap because I didn't have the time to watch the race, and I watched it a few times to try to
Mm-hmm.
see kind of what happened. And as she's sitting there, she's like, that was intentional. That was extremely intentional." And I was like, yeah, yeah, I think it was too, because I mean, it almost looked like Corey LaHoy turned right. You know what
Yeah,
I mean?
especially that's right. Yeah, and that overhead, the overhead angle was the best one to see that. And then he goes on his podcast and he's like, "Oh, I had the run and like he blocked me and there's nothing really I can do." And I'm like, I'm so sick of it. I almost like now I'm like bring Ross Chastain type interviews back where at least he's like admitting what he did and then apologizing for it, but not then doing the same thing. But now all these drivers are just like Kyle Larson, we were both mad about, when he wrecked both our guys. Like everybody's just like, yeah, I had to go in with what I had to run and I just couldn't, and this. And I'm like, shut the fuck up, dude.
Yeah,
So, but yeah,
yeah,
it makes me feel a little bit better that at least everybody saw that, it's not just a Kyle Busch fan. Like, what the, like, that's just crazy. Like Kyle didn't do anything, but yeah, I mean, he blocked him, like I said, but that's what drivers do. That's what everybody does. You're going to block, especially at the end of the race. And like you said, Kyle committed to, all right, he got me. Like I tried, I failed, or I didn't get him. I'm back in the field. I have my line, and we're going to go into turn one, and whatever happens after that happens, and we'll cycle through. Corey LaJoy did not have that on his mind. So now to get off the Corey LaJoy train, I wanted to bring just one more thing up, and then we can move on. Okay. It's the fact, why does he have a job? Because he's good behind a microphone for some people. I don't know. But let me bring something up. Okay. Let's start with his stats. Let's start with his truck stats. So he only had 5 races in trucks. He had 0 wins, 0 top fives, and 0 top tens. Well, let's move on to Xfinity. Somehow he got a ride in Xfinity. 22 races there, 0 wins, 0 top fives, and 2 top tens. And then let's go to the Cup. 257 races. So, I mean, he didn't even do his time in the lower series,
yeah.
obviously. 0 wins. He's got 4 top fives and 9 top tens in 257 races. I mean,
The goat. He's the
the,
goat.
the goat. I mean, this guy, straight person. Talk about straight personality, and that's why you have a ride because you clearly can't do anything. I feel like and those top fives are, uh, if you weren't to wreck out in the Chicago street race and random people finish in the top 5 or super speedways, so you
Well, I
suck,
mean,
Corey LaJoy. You suck. Okay.
he even said in his post race interview too. He even said in his post race interview too, because and I laughed at it because I was like, "Yeah, dude, you run fucking 23rd every week." He's like, "Yeah, running 23rd at Pocono, it's just extremely tough, you know. It's just extremely tough." I was like, "Dude, you're a fucking cup driver. Every race should be tough. You should be
Mm-hmm.
racing for the top 5, but yet you're racing for the top 20 every week. You
Yep.
know what I mean? Like that's all I ever see out of La Jolla.
And I promise you, Carson Hocevar, he's already shown, some speed. I think he's got some top 10 races, and he's been in the power rankings and everything. And then I think Michael McDowell's going to come in, make Spire Motorsports. This isn't a bad thing on Spire. Like, I think they're going to be on the come up, but not because of him, not because of him.
No.
And like I said, I don't know that Rodney can save that. But hopefully they can keep Rodney and get another driver in there. Hell, maybe let's put Kyle Busch in there because RCR sucks, and then maybe we can build that program up. But let's get back into the race. So again, like I said, just a mirage of mechanical failures. Ty Gibbs, his engine expires out of nowhere, all on his own. He's not able to make it back. He's able to make it off the track, but not off of or back to pit road. And so
Yeah.
they have to throw a caution. He ends his day after having that pole, having the strong car. And
Did
then
you see? Did you see what happened?
the
It was to Ty Gibbs. It was an engine failure, but it was a mix of water and oil. So somebody,
oh, was that the things that
yeah,
was
that
coming
was the
out of it?
brown. Yeah, it was the brown shit coming out of his exhaust pipes.
Saw plenty of
Um,
memes about that.
yeah, that's basically what happened. His something happened in his engine to where like a coolant line or something like that burst and it got into the oil, and that's how all that brown shit started coming out of the exhaust.
Okay, gotcha. I didn't actually see like the exact reasoning on that, so that's very interesting to know. Um, but let's get into the end of this race. Like I said, if we did the pick'ems, TJ might be a little upset because Mr. Ryan Blaney ends up having a really great stage 3, holds off Denny Hamlin, who's already freaking dominant at this track, like we said, who ends up finishing second in this race, by the way. But Ryan Blaney able to take it, win his second race of the year. And yeah, both races he's won. I mean, he's won it on pure talent, and you can't say anything about it. So I know he had a rough start of the season, but just like we said with Christopher Bell a little bit a while, or a month or so ago, just having that run, Ryan Blaney's starting to catch fire at the right time.
Yeah. No, I mean, there's nothing to doubt there. I mean, there's a few drivers that are starting to pick it up right at the right time, right at the end of the year. Because, I mean, what are we down to? We're down to 4 races?
Gosh, I'd have to look at the. I haven't been looking at it. I've been kind of avoiding it because
No.
it's just
I
getting.
think I think before I think we have 5. It's either 5 or 4 left,
Yeah.
because there's only 4 spots left, and there's like not enough. There's not enough time, or there's 5 spots left in the playoffs, and we have 4 races left. I think is what it is.
Yep.
So
You're
somebody
right. Four
has to make it
races
in off of
left.
points. Yeah, somebody has to make it in off of points.
Well, hopefully Daytona is going to be the most important race that I'm looking for because I'm looking at the schedule right now, and I'm not sure that 8 car can do too well at the upcoming races. So we're going to have to find a way to win Daytona. So perfect time to get into the power rankings. The next race is the Indianapolis Motor Speedway. Now, I'm really excited about that because it is the oval again. The last couple of years, they went off into the road course, which when they first introduced it, I thought they were going to do both, kind of like they did Charlotte. Um, but a lot of people were pissed, including myself, that they took it off because it's such a crown jewel of the sport. I mean, kissing the bricks, every driver wants to do it. And, like you got Tony Stewart climbing the fence and stuff. It's iconic race. I still remember when Kyle Busch won his first one. And yeah, everybody wants to do it. You got the Daytona 500, definitely number one. You got the Coke 600, and then you got the Brickyard 400 that every driver wants to have on their resume for sure. So glad we're back there. Let's start with number 20, which is number 8, Kyle Busch. Yeah, I mean, okay, like, yeah, you could say he's the 20th best driver. You could probably argue 21, 22, 23, 24 are above him. I know he's shown strength here and there. He got that top 10 at Chicago, but then we had an intentional wreck by Carla Joy, and a finish that wasn't Kyle Busch's fault. So he ended up getting 4 spots up from after Chicago. He went up 4 spots like we kind of figured he would if he got the top 10 from NASCAR, and then boom, 4 spots down. So he stays right at where we were last time at number 20. So I don't know. Does it really even matter at this point?
No, no, it doesn't. I, I mean, yeah, there's a good argument for him to sit there at 20. I think it's a good spot for him. I know the last time we talked about this, I said he deserved to be at 21. 21 or back, 21 to 23, I think is what I said.
Yeah.
But I think, I mean, after the top 10, 20 is a good spot. You can't put him over drivers. Like I've said this whole time, you can't put him over the drivers that I feel like he's been better than in Austin Cindric and Daniel Suarez. Um, so I don't know. You can't put them over them because they have the win. That's a big outlier. It's
Yeah.
way important that they have the win. So we're looking into Kyle Busch's odds for the Indianapolis Motor Speedway. He's looking at 30-1 this week. So average pack.
Same shit every week. That's where he's at, right? He's like, I swear, 28 to 30 odds like almost every week. So not great odds. And like you said, maybe average, maybe middle of the pack. But the fact of the matter is, I think like unless you had, some more mistakes, that's another thing that kind of sucked. Like you talked about, Ross Chastain was in the bubble, and on the cut line, like if Kyle Busch could have had a good day that day, that could have really helped his chances and maybe been able to make it up on points. But I think we've known for at least a month now that he's probably going to have to win. And now I think it's not mathematically impossible yet, but you got to win that race. So I don't know. Maybe if you can pull something out of your ass at Indy, that you can find some speed, qualify well, get up front, maybe. But like I think we might have to be looking for Daytona. So yeah, that's pretty much it on Kyle. He's got to win, got to find a way to win a race and make the playoffs at least, salvage the season, and like I said, salvage that streak that he has. But let's move on up 5 spots, but down 4 spots overall since the last time we talked about it. Ross Chastain, he's been dipping. So he's down 4. Like I said, overall from last week or from our last podcast, 2 from last week. So he lost 2 spots each. He's at a season low now. I know he had the wreck. That I don't know that you can say it's his fault again, mechanical failure. But yeah, 15 might be a little low for me just because I feel like it's really I feel like I mean, like we've been saying, he's been an 11 to 13th place guy, and I might argue a couple of spots for him, but I don't know. What do you think?
No, and I think 15 is as low as you can take him, honestly. I mean, he didn't finish Pocono, and obviously mechanical failure, but that's also on the pit crew too.
Yep.
As I've always said, I think that these ratings should go off of the team as a whole. The pit crew is definitely, and one of the most important parts of racing.
Oh yeah.
And so, yeah, I mean, I think 15 is as low as you can take him. I think maybe you could bump him up to 13. That's probably about as high as you could take him at this point. He hasn't hit a stride, and it's a bad spot not to hit a stride at the end of the season.
Yep.
Especially with him being right on the cut line. I think he's only 32 points ahead of Bubba.
Might be something like that. I can check, but yeah, he's getting close.
Yeah, and with wrecking at Pocono, that doesn't help his chances very much. So, coming into this race with his odds, he has 35-1. So they're not looking at him to do much at Indianapolis. I mean, he needs something. Like you're saying, he needs to win just to secure the spot because sitting on that cut line is stressful for everybody involved, and especially with how the team has been racing this last month, really.
Yep.
It's just stressful, and you definitely need to get the win to secure the spot, or really need to start finishing in the top 10 to push yourself up the bubble a little bit.
Definitely. And yeah, so I found it. He is 16th on the cut line. He's got 27 points over Bubba Wallace. And like you said, I mean, the thing is, any one of those drivers wins, even if it, or Bubba gets the points. But if Bubba wins, Ross is out. If Briscoe's at 18, if he wins, he's out. Kyle Busch, if he wins, Ross Chastain gets nipped out. So, and another guy like McDowell is always strong at super speedways. I think he got into the playoffs kind of like that last year or a couple years ago. So you never know. All you got to be is top 30 in points and get that win. So I think your options are limited, so I wouldn't get like stressed, but you never know, and especially with Daytona being the last race of the regular season, it's always a wild card. So you don't want to be number 16 for the points. So yeah, definitely going to need some something to turn the season around and get it right back on the track. So, but let's move on up to wow, I starting with all three of our boys, Joey Logano at number 13. This one's kind of funny because he's down one overall. He's up one from last week because he did get a top five um, at Pocono. He had a pretty strong race, but he's down one overall. Not too crazy, I'd say. I mean, obviously, like you said, he got the race win. He hasn't been as strong, not as consistent as Ross Chastain. He's had a lot of poor finishes, but then he's got that win, and then he has a few top fives in his bag now. So I can see this as a good spot for Joey Logano.
Yeah, I mean, after getting his win and now he's got a few top fives and stuff, it's I think it's a good spot for him to be after how slow of a start to his season it was, basically up until the All Star break. Um, him coming into this week though, he's got 14-1 odds, so they're looking at him to do pretty well in Indianapolis this week.
Yeah,
And
that's a little
maybe
surprising. Yeah, he's looking
and
good.
maybe secure some more playoff points while he's at it. So.
Definitely be good for that 22 team. But let's move on up to number 12, who's Chris Buescher, down two spots from our last power rankings. Not too surprising here. I like the thing is the drivers that are ahead of him. I would say like you could sit there and argue. I'd say like 10 through 12 that we'll get into. You could switch them all depending on the race. They're all so close, is what I would say. So not too bad for Buescher at 12.
Yeah, no, Busher's good there at 12. I feel. I mean, he's definitely had a slump recently, and was him and Brad Keselowski had their streaks in the middle of the season, and now they're both declining. So,
Yeah.
and coming into this week, I mean, he's got some pretty good odds too. He's coming in at 15-1, so looking for him maybe to get that top 10 finish.
Yeah, looking pretty dang good. Well, let's keep on trugging along. Ty Gibbs is up at number 11. So he's down two from last week, but I don't even remember if we talked about him last week, but he's trending up overall because I think he slipped down to 13, 14 or something. So, and he definitely, like I said, showed speed. He definitely might have had a chance to get that first win at Pocono if it weren't for the mechanical failure. So I like Ty Gibbs at 11. I could argue Chris Buescher has shown more strength and competed for more wins, but at the same time, Gibbs has been, maybe a little more consistent overall, stronger at times. So, yeah, I again like it at 11.
Yeah, I mean, I could flip. You could really flip either one of them either way. They both had hot streaks. Ty Gibbs had his hot streak at the beginning of the season. Busher hit his in mid-season. So, yeah, I mean, you could really flip them either way. Coming into this race, though, Ty Gibbs coming in at 17-1 odds. So, looking pretty good this week. Maybe he can finally capitalize because he did have the pole at Pocono, correct?
Yep.
So maybe this week he can capitalize at Indy.
Yeah. Well, let's get into the top 10. That'd be Mr. Brad K. So he's up one spot from our last podcast. Again, I would go with the same thing. Not much to say. He's definitely fallen off since his strong run, but you still got to put him in the top 10. He showed some speed at Pocono, so I think he's deserving of a spot. And I think, yeah, that 10 through 12 group is really similar right now, especially those RFK Fords are running really similar with him and Busher. So can't be too mad about him at 10.
No, and I mean, like I said, him and Busher have been doing the same thing. They hit their mid-season stride. Brad got his win, and that's the only reason why I'd put him over the other two drivers. And you know, they're both just on a downtrend, and you could really have an argument for all three of them. I would just say that Brad gets the win out of that because he has a win.
Because he got the
Uh,
win, right?
yeah. And so coming into Indy, he's got 15-2 odds. So they really love him here in
Whoa.
Indy. They really love him here in Indy.
I think the Ford so far the Ford's looking really good this week because I think that they got better odds than Ty Gibbs, and he's the next closest. Yeah, they all
Yep.
got better odds than him, so that's interesting. Ford's maybe looking at a good week. But let's move on up to number 9, Alex Bowman. So this is an interesting one to talk about, obviously, because we had talked about him having all the top tens, but then he kind of fell off. Well, now he's up. So he's up one from last week, but he's up a lot from the week before because obviously NASCAR gives him the big jump, which I kind of understand in this scenario. But the thing is, he finished third at Pocono. So he put together the best, little stretch of his season for sure. So I get the big jump. Um, yeah, I like Bowman at 9.
No, and I mean, Bowman had his strong stretch with his top tens, and now he's got the win, obviously, which I think is a good reason for him to get jumped the way that NASCAR jumped him. That's the only time that I'll agree with NASCAR jumping anybody like that,
Yeah,
either forwards or backwards, just because if Bowman has had a strong season. He just needed to win to capitalize, and, now he gets the big jump. So coming into Indy, Bowman at 28-1 odds. They're just really not liking the Chevys at Indy, it seems like.
no,
So
not until I'm sure our main guys that are always up there. But again, those are also kind of common odds for Bowman. He hasn't really hit. He's been in that Kyle Busch range, I would say, most of the season. That 28 to 32 to 1 odds. Let's get up into number 8, which, you know, jeez. I know the last time we had the podcast, we're talking about maybe this guy is the best in NASCAR. And he's had a lot of unfortunate things happen. He's got 3 straight finishes outside of the top 10. But that must be Mr. Christopher Bell. 3-time winner. Christopher Bell is at number 8. He's down 5 spots from our last podcast and 3 from last week. I get the bad finishes, okay? I do. But the fact of the matter is, he's shown speed in almost all of them. And like we've talked about, the dude could be a 5-6 time winner right now if it weren't for mechanical failures, this, that, the other things that happen. I hate this. Do not think that Christopher Bell belongs anywhere near even the bottom of the top 5, let alone outside of the top 5. So, yeah,
yeah,
those are my
I
thoughts.
mean, Christopher Bell, like I've been saying, I think the top 4 spots are secured for the guys that have the 3 to. We don't have a 4-time winner yet, do we? Yeah.
Nope.
For all the guys that are 3-time winners, they all need to be in those top 4 spots, and they can shuffle through the top 4. That's
Mm-hmm.
not a big deal. You know what I mean? If Christopher Bell's had a bad couple weeks, maybe he deserves to be back at 4.
Yeah.
And the other 3 win drivers get 1, 2, and 3. But I don't think that they should ever fall outside of the top 4. I mean, a 3-win season is insane. So,
Yeah.
I. But coming into Indy, he's got 11-1 odds. So look for him to be up there at the top again with another strong car.
Jeez. It really seems like we're not going to see a lot of them. What do they call them? The bow ties, them Chevy bow ties up front. Cause besides probably the Larsons and the Bells and whatnot. Or Larson and Byron, sorry.
Yeah.
Because this there it looks like Toyota's got some good odds. I mean, 11-1. It's Christopher Bell too, but I know Gibbs had 17-1, and Chevys haven't touched the double digits or the teens yet, I should say. But let's go on up to number 7, which is his Joe Gibbs racing teammate, Martin Truex Jr., who stays at 7 from our last podcast, but is down 1 from last week from NASCAR's podcast, which I'm a little confused about, like why you drop him for this week, at least if you're NASCAR, because he won the stage, put up his second best points day since Kansas, and finished eighth. So I would think that at least merits stay where you are in my power rankings or in NASCAR's power rankings. If not, maybe go up a spot. But yeah, Martin Truex at 7. The spot maybe not too crazy. Now, I know a guy, Bell, definitely deserves to be above him. So I would maybe like him better at 8. But yeah, Martin Truex is 7.
No, and I mean, I just don't think that because I mean, seven's good for Martin Truex. Bell's just getting disrespected, just like how William Byron's been disrespected all season.
Yep.
I know that Byron's wins came super early, but I mean, it's the same thing. They're just getting disrespected by not being in the top four. Martin Truex doesn't deserve to, you know, even probably see six because he hasn't had very good racing recently, and without having a win, that pushes you back in the rankings a little bit. But coming into Indianapolis, he's got 14 to 1 odds, so maybe we'll. I don't know. I mean, I can say this every week. I feel like I've said it the last couple of podcasts that maybe we'll finally see a Martin Truex win.
Yep. Right. He keeps having those good odds and we keep picking him, but then something, ends up happening. But I don't know. He's definitely, it's not like he said a terrible season, but like you said, hasn't had that win. Now, talking about the guy you've been saying's been getting disrespected in NASCAR slowly, but surely trying to give him a little bit more. Well, Mr. William Byron's up at 6, up 2 spots from our last podcast. So he was the guy that was at 8 that we were talking the same exact conversation about Bell. He's up 1 from last week. I feel like he is, trending in the right direction. He's not showing speed for the win quite yet in recent weeks, but like we said, he's a 3-time winner, um, and has been up there. He's got top 5s, got top 10s. Just because he hasn't got a win in a while doesn't mean he hasn't had a great season. So finally getting William Byron back closer, at least, to the range that he deserves to be in.
Yeah, and I mean, I this is what I'm saying. Like, you can make an argument for William Byron and Christopher Bell to be up at 3 and 4 and just sit there and swap
Yep.
because that's kind of, and I would almost put Christopher Bell over William Byron at that point, and have Byron at 4 and Bell at 3.
Mm-hmm.
Um, but that's, I mean, I just don't understand why NASCAR has to disrespect their 3-time winners like this. You know what I mean?
Seriously. Well,
Um,
oh yeah. Oh man, I was doing so
you
good.
almost had it.
I
You
was doing
almost had
good.
it,
I was doing
bro.
good. I broke a
You just
streak.
always try to jump into the next guy. But no, William Byron coming into Indy, he's got 11 to 1 odds. That's it's not surprising. He's always had pretty good odds most of the season.
Like you
Um,
said, gonna be that Chevy, one of those 2 Chevys with the actual good odds.
Yep.
So I can see it. Well, maybe 3. I think we're forgetting about or at least I'm forgetting about Mr. Chase Elliott. He'll probably have good odds too. We'll have to see.
Yeah.
But yeah, one thing I forgot to mention about Byron is he did get back-to-back top 10s. So he is getting that consistency back, like officially. Like I said, he's trending in the right direction. Back-to-back top 10s, definitely good. Getting the consistency back. So let's talk about our top 5 and Mr. Ryan Blaney cracking it. Now, I don't even think this is the first time he has because I think, NASCAR, when he got his first win, probably put him in the top 5. I can't quite remember off the top of my head, but um, can't be too mad about this. He moved up 1, which I'm a little surprised with the way NASCAR does things that, we didn't just skyrocket him. But I kind of respect this move. I get Blaney moving up 1. Now, it wasn't Byron that he passed, it was Bell. Bell was the person that they ended up giving the whoops, sorry, made my camera a little shaky there. But yeah, so Bell was the person that Blaney passed, which I still don't think is fair, but I get him moving up 1 spot. But again, everything's shaken up. So, but can't be too mad about Blaney being in the top 5 because that's the thing. If you were to go like the way you've been talking about it all season, right? Go with those wins. You got those 4 drivers with 3 wins, and then you got Blaney with 2. And Does anybody else have 2?
I don't think so.
No, Chase Elliott won, Reddick won, Brad, Cinder, everybody else got 1. So yeah. So I could see, based on your kind of criteria, right? You'd probably put him right there at 5, maybe.
Yeah, and I mean Blaney's been showing that he has the speed. I mean, obviously he could be at 3 wins now,
Yep.
if he didn't run out of gas. So I mean Ryan Blaney, I'll bring
But
it up every podcast.
when you're Ryan Blaney,
Just
it ends up happening. He's just found a way
um,
not to be Ryan Blaney. These past couple wins.
yeah, yeah. No, I think, and you're right. With my criteria, I would probably put Ryan Blaney at 5, just because I feel like those wins being such an outlier on the season, they mean so much. So I would definitely put Ryan Blaney at 5. But coming into Indy, he's got 15-2 odds. So
More great odds for
looking,
them forwards, man.
yeah, looking pretty good. Looking pretty good for this week.
Well, let's move on to number 4, and here we are again. Let's just cut this and put in our same conversation from the last time NASCAR did this. Denny Hamlin at number 4. So they dropped him 2 after the Chicago Street Race, which again, just like we said with Sonoma, we knew it wasn't going to be a strong one for him. I think he had like 30-1 odds when we talked about it, and so everybody's staying away from Denny Hamlin. Not his cup of tea. That's fine. He finishes second at Pocono. Very well could have won the race. Was the favorite, and we didn't even move him. So he dropped 2 from our last podcast, and then he stayed at 4 after a second place finish and those 3 wins. How many times are we going to have this conversation? I swear. Like I said, insert clip from a few weeks ago when we'd already talked about this. Just put it right here. It's the same. It's the same fucking shit.
It's the same. It's the same thing. I mean, and we'll keep on standing on our hill, about it too. We'll keep repeating it because I mean, it's just disrespect. You know what I mean? I
Yep.
think Denny Hamlin and Kyle Larson should be fighting for 1 and 2, and based off of their respective months, you flip one or the other. Because they both just had that strong of a season, and I think Christopher Bell's starting to get to that point too.
Yeah, I agree.
And so you can argue that the top 3 spots should be a battle for Kyle Larson, Denny Hamlin, and Christopher Bell. Coming into Indianapolis this week, which I think coming in with the best odds, is Denny Hamlin at 4-1. So I expect a good race from Denny Hamlin in Indianapolis.
And watch him win this and all of a sudden become the best driver in NASCAR, just like that, in NASCAR's eyes. Whereas if he was in second and he wins this race, you understand that jump. Well, let's talk about somebody that we've already, again, insert conversation, put it here. Chase Elliott at number 3, up 1 from last podcast. He stays at the same that he was last week, so they gave him Denny Hamlin's spot. Don't understand this because he broke that top 20 streak that has been, one of his crown jewels that, you've been able to use and say, like, hey, this is why he does deserve this spot up here, right? He broke that top 20 streak, and then he got top 10 at Pocono, 9th. It's, probably expected from that Hendrick camp, right? That number 9 car. Definitely doesn't deserve to be above Hamlin, not Bell. I wouldn't say Byron, and maybe some other guys. But yeah, Chase Elliott at 3.
Well, I don't think that Chase Elliott deserves to be above Blaney either. I think that he falls back at least to 6, and just because Blaney's been turning it on at the right spot in the season, and he's got his 2 wins now, and yeah, I think Chase Elliott needs to fall back. I know he's the fan favorite and all this other stuff, and that's why they rank him so well. But yeah, Chase Elliott needs to fall back to 6, and we can keep going over my top 4 that I say every fucking week.
Right.
Yeah, coming into Indianapolis. I mean, Chase Elliott does have some pretty nice odds. He's 9-1 on this race, so expect him to be racing up in the top 10 according to the odds makers.
Yep. Well, let's talk about his teammate at number 2. Kyle Larson drops 1 spot Um, I don't even I don't even know what to say. They did say in his little bio thing or whatever you want to call it for his power rankings that he has gone 4 straight races now without leading a lap.
Ooh, ooh, ooh,
Right.
that's the worst thing that you can do. Holy shit! Holy shit! Kyle
It's only been
Larson's
like what?
season's out. His
Yeah,
his
he's
season's
done.
done. He's done. He hasn't led a lap in 4 races. He's done. He's done.
Even though
Season's over.
he's oh my god, that I couldn't have said it better myself, man. I mean, that's just terrible. Obviously, the seasons that our drivers have had 4 straight races without leading a lap. I mean, I
I
can't
mean,
even
they deserve to be back.
imagine.
They deserve to be back in the 40s if we're going off of that moving
Jeez, dude. But yeah,
forward.
he drops one spot. With being the favorite, and like that's the thing is he's the favorite in all of these races, if not the second or at the very worst. I feel like when you're not expecting a great race from Kyle Larson on his standards, he has the third best odds. Other than that, he's either best or second best every week. What did they
Yeah.
say for him this week?
Yeah, I mean, coming in at 6-1 odds, so he's got the second best odds of Indianapolis, and I don't know, man. And the next guy we're gonna talk about, why is he even
Well,
up there?
yeah, let's just jump right into it because he definitely is a top driver. You can argue a top 5 driver, maybe top 6. Um, I would definitely say you can't say that he's the best driver this season with 1 win. And that would be Tyler Reddick. So he's up 4 spots from our last podcast. He was in 5th. Okay. I'm just going to throw this out here before you get into it. He does have 7 finishes of 8th or better in the last 8 races. So that is really good consistency. I mean, that's what Kyle Busch has needed to do, to get back in the points, right? So he's doing really good. And he has been in contention, like I said, at the Chicago Street Race. He could have won that race if it went a little bit better for him. The best driver in NASCAR, though? I'll let you go ahead from here. I don't even know.
I don't know what to say, man. It's insane. You know what I mean? Like, just the disrespect that they put on the best drivers in the sport this season is insane to me. And we've said this from the beginning. I mean, it's like they just go from week to week, and the power rankings need to be based off of a season. Every other sport does it based off of a season. Why can't NASCAR? Um, Tyler Reddick, to me, maybe falls back to 6. I would put Blaney above him because Blaney's got the 2 wins, and I feel like Blaney's been pretty strong recently. And I know that Tyler Reddick has 7 finishes of 8th or better, but in the last 8 races. But I mean, it's the wins are outliers. I'll keep fucking saying it.
Yep,
Um,
I can see it.
and yeah, so I think Tyler Reddick at least drops back to 6. I don't see why he's even in contention for the best racer in NASCAR. Um, Yeah, this is just it's insane to me. Coming into Indy, he's got 11-1 odds, so good odds. Tyler Reddick always usually
Definitely.
has good
Always a
odds.
strong car. Yeah.
He always has
He's
good
had
odds, but
he's
he
yeah,
doesn't
and
deserve to be there.
no, not yet. Now he could have 3 wins and then you could argue it, but he doesn't, right? That's what I talked. Remember a month or two ago when I said, and then I said the next podcast, you put egg on my face, right? Because I said, thing with Kyle Larson is he's got that 1 win. He hasn't finished the races. He's looked like the dominant car, but he hasn't quite finished it. And then he won the next race, right? He could do it. Tyler Reddick could be up there, but he just hasn't yet. So I'll give him some strength. I'll give him some love, but not quite yet. So let's just finish it off with good old Kyle's power rankings. I'm Larson's still number 1. You can't deny that right now. You can argue maybe Hamlin, like I said, you can argue maybe Bell, but I think both, especially Bell, has had not as consistently strong of a season. He had that rough part, like we were saying. And then Hamlin's kind of, been off and on. The road courses haven't been good while they have been good for Larson. So I'm going to keep Larson at 1 for sure. I'm going to keep Hamlin at 2, and I'm going to keep Bell at 3. They still got the 3 wins. Bell's coming on the right time. They're consistently at the top of the leaderboards for odds and everything, so I'm going to keep those 3. And then I'm going to put Reddick at 4. Just because I think the consistency and the overall trend, like those 7, like I said, 7 out of 8 races, he's finished 8th or better. I'm going to put him at 4. That I know we go a little different, but then I'm going to put Byron at 5. So the Reddick and Byron up 1 spot from my last power rankings.
Yeah, I mean, I would put, like I've said already, I'd put Larson at 1, Hamlin 2. You can argue for either one of them to switch places. You could even argue for Christopher Bell to jump to 2. And then I would put William Byron in there at 4,
Mm-hmm.
and then I would honestly put Ryan Blaney at 5,
Yeah.
and then kick Tyler Reddick to 6. That's kind of what I would do, but that's just based off of, and we're coming down to the end of the season. This is, it's a point that I wanted to make. We're coming down to the end of the season. Every driver now has had a slump in the season. Every driver now has had a best part of their season. So now you really have to look at the season as a whole, and that it all comes down to the wins. You know what I mean?
Yeah. And that's what, like, when you say, like, look at the season as a whole, that's why I give Reddick the bump over Byron and Blaney, because it's been more consistent and he's been a top finisher or competing for more wins. But at the same time, I understand your criteria. I think that that's the thing, is you're definitely not like you're a win centralized guy, like you have to have those wins, but a win means everything in NASCAR, like you've talked about. So I definitely get that. But I'm going to give Reddick the slight bump here. But yeah, let's go on to the next 5. So that would be Blaney, up 1 from my last spot or last podcast. And then Chase Elliott down at 7. And that's down 4 from NASCAR. I gave him 3 spots down this week. And now that was before Blaney had a win. So I can kind of understand it. Byron, he's definitely been more consistent. Reddick, I think, when we were talking, because we were talking about Chase Elliott's very good statistics, but then when you look at it and you put Reddick, Byron, and Blaney above Elliott, make me an argument that any one of those or Elliott should be above any one of those drivers. Like, make me an argument. I don't see it.
No, no,
Oh,
and
sorry, I
go
got
on.
so caught up in that, but let me just make sure I get the rest. Martin Truex at 8, Alex Bowman at 9. Which I talked about Martin Truex belonging in that 8 spot. I think that's right where he belongs. And then Bowman at 9, that's up 5 spots. Obviously, like you said, you could understand that jump. And then Brad Keselowski, I'm going to put at 10. So like I said, Byron, I'm going to go, or sorry, not Byron, Blaney, I'm going to go at 6. I'm going to give him that 1 spot. Chase Elliott, I think you can't say that he's better than any of those 3 drivers I mentioned above him. And then Truex, Bowman, Keselowski.
Yeah, and I mean, with me bumping Byron up, and taking Tyler Reddick down, because I would take Tyler Reddick to 6, and then I would put Chase Elliott there at 7, and then you could put Martin Truex at 8, Bowman at 9 because of the win now and how consistent his season's been, and then Brad at 10. Really, it's just my top 5. I would say that is going to change the most drastically compared to yours and NASCAR's.
Yeah.
But that would be it.
Okay. Well, let's continue on. I'm going to go Chris Buescher at 11, just more consistency than the next guy who does have a win, Joey Logano. But I think Joey Logano could pass him up, especially with those odds that you were talking about earlier, if he continues to have a stronger end of the season. And then I'll keep Ross at 13. I don't think he quite deserves to be bumped down now. I could argue Ty Gibbs above him, but I think Ross has just been a little more consistent. I get he's had a rough couple of weeks, and then I'm going to go Bubba at 15.
Yeah, I mean, I don't have an argument really here. I mean, you really could put Ross Chastain anywhere between 13 and 15. You can move him anywhere in that spot, just because of how bad he has been racing this last month. So yeah, that I mean I agree with these five.
Okay. Well, let's finish it out. I'll go Briscoe at 16. He's definitely had some consistency, as least as far as, finishing top 15, low top 10s more often recently than I'd say the guys behind him, which is Cindric and Suarez. So Cindric 17, Suarez 18. We talked about those one win guys that haven't done much other than those one wins. And then I'm going to have Barry at 19. He's definitely coming on as of late. And my boy, Kyle Busch at number 20 because, yeah, I don't know. I want to.
No, no, I don't have anything against this rounding out the top 20. I mean, it's not, there's nothing really to argue there. I think Austin Cindric and Daniel Suarez are definitely have to stay at 17, 18. They haven't shown anything besides the one win all season, so I think this last five is pretty good.
Awesome. Glad to hear it. Well, hell, that was a lot to unpack, especially when we have these double recap episodes and then you have a freaking idiot like Corey LaJoy just stirring up some drama that Kyle has to go on and on about for 30 minutes. I mean, hey, there's only so much I can do. But hey, thank you guys for joining us. Big Country, thank you as always, and we will check you guys next time.